the way you communicate with your teammates, it's so important.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're communicating them with emotion, with anger, being upset, man, nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
Right. So just being able to kind of just, even when you're fiery, angry, whatever, being able to talk to them calmly to figure it out, because you know what, like, man, you got another round, or you got X amount of time left to turn this thing around.
Could you walk us through a typical fitness and mobility session for an esports player?
For sure. So we do have a routine that we go through with our pro teams before competition, just like you spoke about with your experience in competing. Competing at a high level, if you're not used to it, it's nerve-wracking. And even if you are used to it, it's nerve-wracking. Like,
yeah.
That adrenaline that kind of goes through your body with a high stakes environment, high pressure environment, like a lot of these esports games too, like you have teammates that rely on you.
Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to episode 2 of the Lotus 8 podcast, Mind, Body, and Gaming. I am Curlie Q, and with me today, I have Coach Myles, and we're going to talk a little bit to you about one of the things that I think make Lotus 8 stand out compared to many other esports orgs. Performance, mindset, mindfulness is such an incredible thing that Lotus 8 does. And so we're going to get down into the details about that. Coach Myles, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what performance, mindset, mindfulness is?
Hi, everybody. I'm Coach Myles. I'm a co-creator of the PMM system, Performance, Mindset, Mindfulness. And I am the fitness director. So I deal with everything fitness related to PMM. And what PMM is it's combining performance meditation with performance fitness. So what we do is we use this with our esports athletes to, again, really help them feel clearer, more resilient, more focused in what they do. And with the combination of performance meditation and fitness, really showing them improvement every day in their mental clarity, as well as physical endurance, physical performance, just kind of integrates into esports fluidly.
Yeah, no, I think that's really awesome, because I don't think people really consider how their physical activity affects their gaming performance, their competitive performance. And so I think this is going to be a really awesome topic for our listeners, whether you're a casual gamer or a competitive player or even a streamer. I feel like this can apply to streamers as well, because I think just overall being more active and, putting a little bit of that fitness into your life can just overall improve your mental health just in general. So, next question here. In traditional sports, mental and physical training go hand in hand. So how does a PMM bridge that gap in esports, where the focus is often solely on in-game skills?
So the thing about that is just like in esports, the body and mind are just as interconnected as regular sports. Perhaps in a little bit of a different way, but PMM emphasizes mental readiness, emotional regulation, and physical endurance. So by integrating all of like the mindfulness and mindset training, as well with the fitness related things that we do, esports athletes can increase their focus, reduce their burnout, and improve their decision making. Just, and again, integrating our tools. And the longer you can play, again, feeling comfortable, a lot of the things that I do is being a little bit more preventative of the common sedentary lifestyle positions. So again, being preventative, meaning doing our mobility stuff to hopefully loosen up our neck, loosen up our back, our hips, right? Our hands and our wrists, so that when you're in game and your focus is like performing at a high level, that your focus could be on what's in front of you. Not that, oh man, my lower back has been killing me since I've sat down, right? And again, with esports, everything's such split-second decision-making that if your mind wanders for, again, that second, it could cost you a game.
Yeah. No, it can, be a distraction. Your back starts hurting and suddenly you're not thinking about, what you're doing again. You're not thinking about the call outs in your headset. You're thinking about this feeling that's in your back or, just not feeling very well. And in the previous episode, we talked a little bit about like mental health and how even like experiencing, the anxiety, how that can, be distracting. And so it's really interesting how this all just goes hand in hand. What are some key exercises or techniques you use with esports players to build that mental resilience? Earlier, you mentioned building that resilience. So let's go into that a little bit.
For sure. So a lot of our things, again, we have our performance meditation as well as our mobility routine that I created, something that you could do at your desk, as that's where we are majority of the time before competing. A lot of it has to do with breathing exercises, really focusing into your breath, taking your time through your breathing cycles. That way, again, when you single out that one thing, and again, in this case, it's your breath, right? It just helps give that mind that clarity and that focus point. And with those breathing exercises, we find that it does kind of like, it eases your stress. It calms you down. Just having that single focus gives you that kind of just that readiness and that confidence that, again, my mind is clear. My body feels good. That things just kind of smooth out. So again, a lot of it is it's the power of the breath and the breath work that really kind of calms you down, gets you loose, and gets you ready to compete at a high level.
Yeah, I know for me, I dabbled a little bit in the competitive scene when I was playing Pokemon Unite. The first year I was on an esports org and I competed and stuff. I never expected to experience the kind of anxiety that I experienced on tournament day. You just have that knot in your stomach and you feel a little shaky. And I just remember for me, like just thinking like, just breathe in and out, slow breaths. Let's try to tame that anxiety. Let's try to calm down a little bit. The nerves are high. And so, yeah, I know firsthand just how like just even controlling your breathing can be super beneficial to dealing with that pre-tournament anxiety, which often carries into the game as well, which is why it's so important to try to, learn how to build that resilience and try to prevent it from happening during those key moments in the tournament. So could you walk us through a typical fitness and mobility session for an esports player?
For sure. So we do have a routine that we go through with our pro teams before competition, just like you spoke about with your experience in competing. Competing at a high level, if you're not used to it, it's nerve-wracking. And even if you are used to it, it's nerve-wracking. Like, yeah. That adrenaline that kind of goes through your body with a high-stakes environment, high-pressure environment, like a lot of these esports games too, like you have teammates that rely on you, right? So again, am I doing enough for them too, right? So with the routine that we go through, I would kind of explain it like this. The way I've created it is I kind of go top down. So we'd start at our neck, go down to our shoulders, chest, back, into our hips, and then into the smaller muscles, into our arms. And again, just working down through the body, everything within your chair to kind of give you that relation to your usual environment. And again, just getting into those stretches and breathing your way through it, right? Like, so I usually get into stretches for about 5 breath cycles. And again, your focus is on the stretch, your focus is on your breath, and then you just go on to the next one. Right? Just take your mind off of, again, the competition in front of you. Just kind of connect to the body, connect to the stretch, and then compete.
All right. I love that. And I hope our listeners are taking notes, and make sure, if you are a competitor, you have a tourney coming up, make sure you guys are taking note of the things that, we mentioned here, because they might help you get through, that mental stress, that anxiety that many people experience, pre-tournament in the competitive scene. And as it was mentioned earlier, it happens to people that are, it's their first tournament, it's their second tournament, or maybe it's their 10th or their 20th tournament. Even experienced competitive players will experience those feelings. And so it's really important that, as a competitive player, you take control of that, you learn how to maintain it, you learn how to dial it down when it's necessary. So fitness and mobility are often overlooked in esports. I mentioned earlier, PMM, even before I joined Lotus 8 Esports, it really stood out to me because as a gamer, I keep up with so many different gamers and esports orgs, and I've never seen an esports org post or prioritize about, the mental fitness that comes along with being a competitive player. So what are some common physical challenges esports players face, and how do you address these?
You know what? A lot of why I wanted to do this was kind of to change the stigma of the esports athlete. And I'm not even talking about the public's view. I'm talking about the athlete themselves. Mm-hmm. Right? That incorporating fitness into your everyday life will not only help you, again, go towards your goals, your fitness related goals, but it will also help you kind of focus into your games. Right? And again, just being preventative of the wrist pain, the back issues, neck strain people go through, even like eye fatigue. Right? All of it happens just because we're sitting down for long periods of time staring at a screen. Mm-hmm. Right? So the common physical challenges that esports athletes face are all related to the sedentary positions. So what I try to do is, again, I just try to be preventative. Do these things on a regular basis, even when the body feels good, right? Like you don't want to be reactive to a situation just like now, like my neck hurts, now I need to do these things. Yeah, right? Do these things on a regular basis and you don't worry about your neck hurting. Yeah. Right? You don't worry about your back hurting, hips, all those things related to being sedentary for long periods of time.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. When you build up that resilience and, you try to prevent those things from happening on tourney days or, the moments when it matters the most for these competitive players. That way it doesn't end up distracting you in the moment. That's pretty huge. So beyond just in-game performance, how does PMM help players in other areas of their lives?
That's the cool thing about PMM. I do believe it translates to way further than esports, and it extends to all walks of life. Like PMM helps people develop self-awareness, helps increase emotional control, stress management skills. All of that can benefit outside of esports, right? The resilience, the focus that you build through it, it improves everything around you, the relationships that you have with people, right? Mm-hmm. Your family, friends, co-workers, supports better decision making. Your mind is clear. You could really focus on. We all know how it is when we're hangry or we're tired, right? We're just fiery. We can't handle it. We make poor decisions until, again, we get that resolve. If you just understand that you're hangry and the ability to calm yourself down, it just improves the decisions that you make during that times and just promotes a balanced lifestyle.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing too, especially with, you mentioned the emotional aspect of it. I mean, as gamers, especially when you're in a competitive scene, you can get annoyed very easily. You can get angry very easily. You can get sad very easily. You can easily get into your head about your performance or your team's performance. And you either take it out on yourself or you end up taking it out on your team. And then it's just, you just end up spiraling at that point. And so you're not going to perform at your best, and your team is not going to perform at their best either. So that to me is a big thing, because I know in the esports realm, I feel like, you often do see players getting very angry after a loss, or you see them like some tournaments where they show the players' cams like during the game that they're playing, and you can just see the change of their emotions, like how they're reacting to it and stuff, and that's going to get into your head as a player, and that's going to affect your performance in the end. So having that emotional resilience is going to be really huge for competitive players. And so that's why this conversation, I think, is so important. I love that you mentioned wanting to break that stigma, not just to the public, but to the players themselves.
I just want to touch on one thing with that.
Yeah,
right?
no, go ahead.
Just kind of going back to what you were saying about being heated and all that. And again, like the thing about esports is you don't physically see your teammates, right? Not like other sports when you're playing right beside with them. Like the communication it's pretty direct.
Yeah.
Right. You're still direct communication in esports, but it's also indirect, as you're normally not with each other. Right. Except for at the highest level competing on stage and you're beside each other, but still you're not physically looking at them while you're playing. So the way you communicate with your teammates, it's so important.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're communicating them with emotion, with anger, being upset, man, nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah.
Right. So it just being able to kind of just, even when you're fiery, angry, whatever, being able to talk to them calmly to figure it out, because you know what, like, man, you got another round, or you got X amount of time left to turn this thing around.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, having that that emotional balance, regularity to tone down when you need to it's so key for success in this sport.
Oh, 100%. So with that being said, that kind of leads right into our next question very smoothly. What advice would you give to players who are new to PMM and might struggle with adopting these techniques?
I would just say start small and focus on consistency. So if it's the meditation piece that you love about it, right? Like just focus on the breathing, focus on doing it for X amount of time a day. You can start with a minute of meditation, go up to 2 minutes tomorrow, 3 minutes the next day, right? Again, you just kind of want to stack, right? I always tell this to my players, athletes, esports athletes, you can't go 0 to 100. It's not sustainable. It's not consistent. Right. But if you just start stacking to things, you go 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, you still get to the same place, but you've added all these layers of tools to your arsenal to really help that be consistent in your life now.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And it's all going to be trial and error, right? Like it's hard to break bad habits. And so it takes time trying to build up those good habits. And, just learning along the way, like it's okay to struggle with these kind of things. You only fail when you quit, when you stop trying. So as long as you're always working on yourself, working on your habits, eventually it's going to click in due time. You just have to, keep pushing through it, have that discipline and that mental strength to push through it.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like you talk about bad habits. Bad habits were formed the same way good habits are, right? Doing something, again, let's say bad, negative, whatever, consistently has now created that habit, right? So at the end of the day, it all kind of comes down to consistency. Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? And how do you get there?
Yeah.
Right. And it's about the consistency that you put into it. One quote that sticks to my head is just like, how you do anything is how you do everything. Right? So if you put maximum effort into things, then you're going to put maximum effort into other things. And there's stuff that we all don't like, right? But it's also like your mindset and how you approach those things that is going to affect how it all works out for you.
Yeah. Mental discipline. It's hard, but it's probably one of the most valuable things that you can learn to do as a human being. It's just having that mental discipline and, trying to push yourself, trying to motivate yourself, which, can definitely be hard, but, reach out to people and remind yourself of your goals and your why and why you're doing what you're doing. And, just remember where you want to be and, develop, reasons to keep at it, to keep trying and to never give up. So as the esports continues to grow, where do you see PMM fitting into the future of professional gaming?
I believe PMM can be an essential part of professional gaming as teams and players start to recognize the benefits of the system. And, our dedicated PMM coaches and programs will become the standard. The shift will promote healthier, longer careers for players, and ultimately, raising just the professionalism and the feel of the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned a few times during this podcast, gaming has been a part of my life since I can remember. I've been on social media since, the MySpace days. So I've seen a lot of stuff about gaming and esports, and Lotus 8 is the first organization that I have seen that puts in the time and energy to have these conversations and to have these workshops, for mental health and for physical health within the realm of esports. And so I think it's huge. I think it's definitely conversations that other esports orgs need to have with their players, with their teams. And it's definitely something that just all around needs to be talked about more often, because it's not just about, gaming, and gaming, it can affect your physical health and it can affect your mental health. We all know that. So, I would love to see PMM adopted into, these other esports orgs for sure. So last question, we're almost there.
Yep.
What's one piece of advice you would give to every aspiring esports athlete regarding PMM?
I would just kind of say that remember that esports performance is not just about skill. It's also about your mental and physical well-being. Now, embracing PMM early in your career can really help you build a strong foundation, prevent burnout, and allow you to enjoy the journey a little bit more and not just the destination.
Yeah. No, I love that, enjoying the journey, because, I'll never forget my first esports venture, or not my esports venture, sorry, my first competitive venture, getting into, Pokemon Unite and competing in the tournaments and, facing really strong teams, and even the times that we were able to overcome some pretty tough obstacles and take down some teams in tournaments. It was such an incredible experience, and I learned a lot about myself. I definitely learned I don't think I'm meant to be a competitive player. Just like the anxiety, I don't know how these players do it. It's absolutely insane. Just especially in this day and age where a lot of tourneys, they're streamed. And you've got an audience, and you got people watching your plays, you got people judging your plays, making comments about it. It's also public these days, and sometimes it can really get into your head, and that was something that I definitely struggled with when I was in the competitive scene. And so I know many other players struggle with the same thing, and so that's why these conversations are so important. Is we are trying to help the competitive players with understanding, and trying to encourage them to develop these good habits, and recognize that, hey, your mental health and your physical health, it goes hand in hand with your gaming performance. And so I think these messages are really important to send out to the community, especially to the younger generation, because gaming has grown so much now. You have 30 and 40-year-olds competing, but you also have 15, 16-year-olds competing as well. And so like they're starting young, and it's really important that, you know, we make sure that we are guiding these young competitive players down the right road to a healthier path through this competitive journey. Because, you know, we all know how much the competitive scene can just kind of swallow you up. So yeah, really important to develop those healthy habits within the competitive scene, and just being a gamer in general. You know, we talked about the emotional resilience and how people can easily get frustrated over, you know, their losses or their performance. And especially if you're a streamer and, you know, you're live on stream and people are seeing your reactions to things, you know, how are they going to interpret that? What are they going to think if you're, you know, raging and throwing a fit over your games, or if you're like beating yourself up about, you know, how you did. And of course, those feelings are normal. We're human beings. But as we mentioned, it's important, you know, just to try to build up those healthy habits for yourself. Is there anything you want to leave us with as we wrap up our second episode?
I just want to say that with PMM, I hope you do give it a try. And again, start slow, build it up, and find consistency in whatever it is. If it's the meditation piece, if it's the fitness piece, if it's both combined, right? Just start stacking it on, and I could swear by it that it won't only improve your esports performance, but it'll also improve the other things in your daily life.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I definitely learned a lot and put things into perspective for me. So thank you so much for your wisdom, for sharing your knowledge, and especially for your time. That is going to wrap things up here for today. So don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to keep up with future podcast episodes. Our social should be linked in the description, but you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. Lotus 8 Esports is the tag. But thank you so much to our listeners for tuning in, and we will catch you next time for our next episode of Mind, Body, and Gaming.